Alrighty, welcome back to Sterling Armory's show review. Don't know what the title is yet because we haven't titled the first one, but we will do that soon. But real quick, if you're new to these, we're basically a big group of nerds who likes to drink a lot of mead and make blades, and yeah, so we do our YouTube show here. Our channel has a bunch of different things, most everything sword related, because we make swords and armor. So, with all, sorry, Josh. I was going to say, with all the new shows coming out, we wanted to review all the great shows. We have Game of Thrones, which we started with House of the Dragon, Hot D. We reviewed first.
No!
What it is, right? Hot D, House of the Dragon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this one we're going to start the Rings of Power show, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. And as of this recording, the first 3 episodes of Game of Thrones came out, and then the first 2 episodes of Rings of Power have come out. But then we have a lot of other shows coming out pretty soon. So hopefully we can keep this going if people like it.
We should watch the new Medieval in theaters this Friday, and then do that one.
Is that coming out? I wasn't sure when that was coming out.
September 9th.
Sweet. Now I know what I'm doing for my birthday.
So, yeah. Happy birthday. That's tomorrow. Is that tomorrow? That's tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, yeah. So
happy,
I'm not sure when
birthday
this is dropping, but yeah, September 7th, because this will probably drop. I don't even know when. 2 weeks
like
from
month
or maybe
from
a month from now. Yeah. I probably don't want to wait too long because this is fresh, right? So
yeah, I'm cool with let's just drop Hot D and rope. Sounds terrible. Hot D and rope. Just drop Hot D and rope on the same day on YouTube. Yeah. Jesus Lord, shit.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So, Rings of Power. So obviously we are huge Lord of the Rings fans, and I think Josh is probably more so than I am, because a lot of your sword designs are based off of a very
huge
Jackson style Lord of the Rings, right?
Yes, huge fan of the Tolkien lore.
Yeah,
I'm a bit of a poser in the fact that I never read the books growing up at all, or Hobbit for that matter. At least I don't remember reading The Hobbit. I saw the cartoons when they came out and was like, cartoons were awesome. And then I was pretty aloof and busy with life and didn't even know that Lord of the Rings was in theaters. It was just all of a sudden, boom, one day it was in theaters. And I was like, crap, we have to see this. And it was amazing. And it lit a fire in me that still burns this day. And I still watch the uncut trilogy every month. Right? Say what?
The extended cut?
Extended cut, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
I have to watch them every month in like one sitting, 12-hour sitting.
I don't quite do that, but once in a while.
There are few who can.
I need more time for that. But yeah, so Peter Lyon did. I think we learned that he didn't design everything, but he definitely does. He had to turn it into reality, right? So that's
right.
A hard job. And I think he did design some of them. I don't recall which is which. So Peter, if you're watching, love to have you on as a guest, and you can maybe walk us through how that whole process went. But so I'm not sure who's doing the arms and armor for the new show, but it's definitely very different.
Right. Yeah.
I don't even. Peter hasn't said anything about it, so I don't know. One, he's either not allowed to, or they aren't working on it.
Yeah, I haven't seen, because usually like Weta, you'd see that was them. It would be splashed everywhere, and their name would be on it. But I'm not sure if they even were using Weta anymore. Like I know in the beginning, I think they were called to do it, but I don't know what happened after that. Which is really interesting that we don't know, or it's not more public that that's the way.
Because I would have.
I'm curious.
Pre-production and everything would have had to been done prior to COVID, right? I would have thought.
Sure.
Maybe it was just in the last couple of years.
I know, they were getting into concept sketches and such, 5 years ago, something like that. 4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
I would think. So I don't know a ton of Tolkien lore, but I have read a bunch. So were you not required to read The Hobbit in 7th grade?
Nah, man. Required reading. I grew up in Georgia.
Okay, that's true. I forgot you were in
I didn't learn reading until my senior year of high school.
Josh facts.
Yeah, yeah, no,
so yeah, we were.
I was required in 7th grade. You know what I was required to read? My teacher, Mr. Colbert, was a Vietnam vet that taught U.S. history and social studies. I forget what the other one was. English. She did English as well. He had us read Alas Babylon, if you've ever heard of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Randy Bragg, Living in Florida, and then Nuclear War and Holocaust. He would basically kept saying he was preparing us for the world that was about to come. What?
It's very optimistic, huh? Yeah.
It really never dawned on me that was anything other than just having us read a book. Never dawned on me that it was preparation or trying to get my mind to think about nuclear fallout as a fact later. Just weird.
Yeah. So did you do the under the desk drills and all that stuff? Did you have to practice that?
Under the desk drills? Yep. Blaring sirens in case yeah. What's it called? What's where they kill you at night? Where crime is legal? Crime is legal once a year. That movie series.
Yeah. Why I can't. I'm blanking on it right now. But yeah, I know. Yeah. So yeah, a little off topic. Sorry about that. But yeah, so we had to read The Hobbit in 7th grade, and then I ended up at that time. So it's been quite a while.
The Purge. It's called The Purge.
The Purge. There you go. Yeah. So
I was like, Hunger Games. No, it's close.
And then I ended up watching the Hobbit cartoon not long after that, and then after the Game of Thrones, after the Lord of the Rings movies came out, I did some more reading. So yeah, when this one started, I expected to be one of the older stories. And it's the only thing that's really baffling me about the show, and I kind of see where I keep saying Game of Thrones, where the Lord of the Rings fans, I can see where the hardcore fans are upset because the show is made up. It's made up, and because it's made up, it is changing key elements of characters that already exist. Right. And I'm just why did they choose to do that? I don't know. But
it's people are calling it billion-dollar fan fiction. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and I get that. So yeah, for me, it's since I never like really settled into the books hardcore and became obsessed as a young kid, I'm not bound by that. I still see some things about it I don't like, but I don't think it's as good as people are saying or as bad as people are saying.
Right. Yeah. Right.
For me, I still enjoy aspects of it, but there's some aspects of it that I'm also just like, nah.
Yeah. There was a couple lines where I was like, what? She just repeated the same line. What? So, right. Yeah. It was pretty funny, but yeah, I still, I'll probably watch all of it. Well, we'll see if I watch all of it, but
yeah, I'm gonna watch all of it.
Yeah, so let's dive into.
Call me a simp if you will, but it's the same thing with Star Wars. Yes, the prequels weren't that good. Yes, some of the newer movies aren't that good. Yes, some of the TV shows aren't that good. But I would still rather have more Star Wars than not enough to go around and still see lightsabers. I'm a bit of a fool like that.
Yeah. I mean, especially from a maker point of view, we're also looking at this like, oh, is there going to be any inspiration to make new stuff? Because the original Lord of the Rings is a lot of inspiration. In fact, I'm working on a Blade right now.
Overload
movies. So
nice.
So yeah, let's add some images here. So first one we're diving into right away. Well, we'll just pull it up here. So yeah. Now, looking at the arms and armor and the swords, the orcs looked fantastic. The armor of the orcs looked fantastic. Yeah. I couldn't see many of the blades at all in there.
Right.
So again, we're covering the first two movies in this review here. The armor for the elves looks pretty cool. Their haircuts this is super nitpicky, I'm sure, but
yeah,
the haircuts pulled me out of it. Like I was like, "What is that?"
Same. I felt the same. We went from, and granted, I say we went from knowing full and well that thousands of years later is the Elrond we know and love as Hugo Weaving and his style and aesthetic. But I was saying this in the group as well. I was like, with the hairstyles and the looks, they just look like, super Caucasian televangelist choir members.
Yeah, with fades, perfect fades.
Yeah, with fades and just bouffant hair that sticks out and comes back.
Yeah,
I'm not really a big fan of the look. I don't see any steeped lore in the aesthetic. Whereas Peter Jackson's lore, or Peter Jackson's elves, they look like they had the angelic look, but still steeped in lore.
Yeah, and
I don't blame this guy. Like, if I were fighting a goblin and got that close, whether it's like the light or the smell, I'd probably be screaming too.
Yeah,
I love the creature design in so far in the first two, like the frost troll and then all the goblins and the creature, or the orcs and the creatures that are there. They look fantastic. The creature effect is really good.
Yeah, and then that orc that came out of the ground, or was it an orc? I think. Yeah, came out of the ground. That thing was, and they made it look like so.
It's like hybrid mole orc.
Right, but he was scary, and he was. It took a lot to take him down. Whereas, in the original Jackson trilogy, orcs were scary, but you never saw them fight normal people. You just saw them fight superior knights who could easily kill them. So they seemed like they were kind of cannon fodder. But now, like, you can see they're not cannon fodder. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Some of the elf armor I liked, and some of it I wasn't a big fan of. Like the main elf guy, the tree bark armor that's like obviously the Green Man motif. I thought that was kind of iffy. And then the elves, when they're was it Valinor, where they're riding the boat to the land?
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Some of the armor looked like they used too thin of plastic, and they just didn't come across right. I don't know if that's just me being
especially because they were taking it off and you could see it, right?
Right. Yes.
Like, oh, that looked weird.
Yeah, it really did. And Tari mentioned this while we were watching it. We were sitting there watching the elves like going on, and she looks over. She's like, "How long is the boat ride?" And I was like, "I don't know." And she's like, "Are they just standing still? Are they just standing still like that the entire like voyage?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, I guess that'd be kind of weird." Like elves are very stickly for everything, so I could see elves doing that, but I would break rank so fast and just be like,
what if you have to go to the bathroom?
Right, sucks. Yeah.
But so in this scene, going back to what's on the image here, like the armor I thought looked pretty cool here. And it sort of reminded me of the original trilogy. Pretty good. But what killed me on this, or not killed me, what I didn't like is you saw them in this pile. And it's like, well, that's the worst war tactics you could ever have. But that could happen in the very end of a battle. I wish we could have seen how it started. So you've seen like how the elves were forming versus how the orcs were forming. I think that would have been cool, a little quick thing like they did in the original show. But I'll caveat that saying maybe they didn't do that because they didn't want to seem like they were just copying what came before, right?
Right.
So that's probably why they did it a bit different.
Speaking of copying what came before, looking at the elves in the background, they really look like the helmets themselves look like simplified, like Spartan Greek Spartan helms.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of brandishing in there, like whereas like the elves that we've seen, Noah and Love and Peter Jackson's have like all the filigree and all the really cool sweeping designs and really again steeped in aesthetic. And these just look kind of plain. I don't know if that's a nod to like this is thousands of years before.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
because in the book, if I remember right, they're supposed to have more simplified, almost like Roman or Greek armor. It's
sure
in this time period. It's supposed to be much more simplified, if I remember right. So yeah, guys, if you're watching, I'm sure you might know better than me.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, let us know. Does it look like it should be
straight? Let us know what's up.
Yeah, let's jump to the next one here. I had to pull this in because I saw this and I was like, my first thought was, I wish we could have seen like a little bit before this to who was piling all this up and like how are they getting things all the way at the top.
I'll tell you why. Notice in the background you don't see any bodies. It's because all the bodies are also piled right there under the helmets.
Underneath the helmets.
It's just a pile of bodies, and then they threw the helmets up last. And like, we gotta cover this up. It's gross.
But I mean, to get the helmets to the top, I mean, you had to throw them up there, right?
Yes.
Like somebody just uncaringly just like boop. Just
it's like Elrond, Elrondish people like shooting 3-pointers, like chuck it up. And it just keeps falling and landsliding down.
And then my second thought, when it was the close up, I was like, oh no, the pile's gonna just slide and fall on her. Like I thought that was gonna happen.
True.
Yeah. And you would have seen her like covered in helmets,
Right.
But it was just a weird shot. I was like, I don't know. To me, that seems like somebody didn't really think about it. They just had a visual they wanted and they did it.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't really think about it. But whatever they want to do, I guess. So here's one. We were talking about this a little earlier. So we don't think this has happened yet in the show, and I thought we saw a glimpse of it in the first episode, but I think you're right. I think this hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But this sword design seems to be pretty cool compared to what the other sword designs that we're going to see in a little bit are. And I think that armor looks decent.
Yeah. It's interesting. I know there was a lot of she's got her elbow cups on, which is great.
Yeah, she does.
I know there was a lot of back and forth on the internet when they first released these, saying the star is not correct.
How is it? I don't know.
The draping chain, if that's draping mithril, I think that's really cool.
So I saw a lot of comments.
Like the bastard sword design of the giant long swords we see, the goofy long swords we see in the very beginning.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those. We'll get
to those. Not at all. Yeah, let's save that one.
Yeah, but yeah, so I heard a lot of complaints about the mithril look, but so I went back and looked at the stuff in the original one, and yeah, they did use super tiny rings for the stuff.
Yeah.
Although probably not that tiny, but it was still small.
Right.
And so when I think of mithril, I don't know. I guess I automatically thought of it as being like a smaller, very tight knit ring mesh compared to what what a lot of people normally think of chainmail. Right. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, the fluted armor. I mean, I do think it looks a bit more plasticky, but
yeah, right.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. And she's not. I don't think that's a back scabbard. I think she just has it on her shoulder.
Yeah, right. I think that's is that the strap that's just right there. There's a white leather strap. That's just the sword.
Hopefully that'll move down to her hip later, but I guess we'll see. So speaking of those weird swords,
I don't know what it is, man. Like, whew.
So I got two frames of mine here. So I come from a Chinese martial art background, and in the Chinese martial arts, there are swords that have very long handles, and then pretty much proportioned very similar to those. And I'm kind of wondering if that's what they were going for.
But cruciform longsword.
But instead of being like a Chinese curved blade, which I think would look better for the elves, because they use those big ones in the very first part.
Which and that's another thing. Like, is this did they first go through an aesthetic of almost European cruciform swords and then switch to an Asian aesthetic later with curved blades?
Don't know.
The long sword, or is it there's so many questions in my brain about that, where I'm like, yeah, they definitely all had curved katana-ish or Chinese-ish swords.
Right.
But in this one, they're all cruciform. I'm not a fan of like the and this is nitpicking, just complaining about things that don't exist. I get that. But like you were saying, the proportions for these types of sword, for that aesthetic of sword, do not make sense for me.
They don't, right?
It looks more like Skyrim, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see. No, especially the guard shapes, right?
Yes,
So, aside from the looks, like when they've been used so far, I first didn't like it, but then I always have to step back and realize Elven steel is lighter, right? It's supposed to be a lot lighter than normal steel. So, because they're using them, they look like they weigh nothing.
Right, yeah.
Which might be okay for elven stuff. But I still don't like... So she jumps off the sword, right? The guy puts his sword out.
Was there no flex to it? Did you see flex to it at all?
There's zero flex, but I was like, the sword was only up like 18, maybe, I don't know, 15, 18, 20 inches. It wasn't that high up. So, and then she jumps pretty darn high. So I was like, why did you even step on the sword? Like, he didn't lift her or anything. She just jumped.
Yeah.
Like, you could have just jumped by yourself. Like, it was a really weird thing.
Yeah,
and,
even if he fastball specialed her with a sword, it wouldn't have made sense with like and that's another weird thing. The guys that she's with don't look exceedingly powerful. In fact, when the cave troll starts attacking they take defensive standpoint and immediately just they chuck an ice chunk at the troll, chuck an ice chunk at him and knocks down like 4 of them like bowling pins. And I'm like,
Right.
they didn't see that coming. They didn't like know that. Like that's what I thought it was funny. And then of course Galadriel, being top shelf elf, destroys it in seconds with nothing the other, which makes me think she's super powerful compared to them, and these are just kind of like maybe junior elf rangers, because they just get their asses handed to them by the cave troll.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Well, so on that same note, so I think back to, and I think probably a lot of people will, Legolas when they're fighting the cave troll, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Legolas pretty much single-handedly takes them out once he figures out how to do it, but it takes him a bit to figure it out, right? And then he jumps on top of him in the air. But he still looked concerned. Like he had a concerned look in his face. But she pretty much mopped up, and it looked a little too
video game anime.
Yeah, it looked like she wasn't in the scene because her eyes were not even on like the creature most of the time, which I thought was odd. It just looked weird. But I thought like the way she was moving the sword and stuff, I just wish it had a little more weight to it. But But I thought it wasn't terrible. But yeah, the way she treated her soldiers, I was like, man, that's a horrible general. Like
totally
a general or a leader. But she was treating her soldiers like they were nothing, and I was like, well, I mean, that's very not Galadriel. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
where the one elf falls in the snow, and she's like, "Leave him!" Like, what? No, we got to go on. We're not, whatever. He'll stay there. It's like,
it was interesting. I mean, I get they're trying to do the revenge stuff, but which is not in the books, by the way.
Sure.
And so I was like, I mean, she's kind of a one-trick pony at the moment, so we'll see if that. Hopefully, the character. I mean, they're probably starting at that spot so they can develop the character, right? That's probably why they're doing that, to show how she gets to the Galadriel that we know. But yeah, it's definitely very different from what was written. What was that? Let's jump to the next one. You got to get going.
Yeah. I don't know. It's my doorbell. My doorbell never rings. That's why it's weird. I'm waiting to see if it happens again.
So, that's the dagger, right? That's her brother's dagger.
Yeah, one on the far left.
The posters they released. So we get a kind of a close-up image of a similar hilt. So while Josh is jumping out here, so I thought the dagger was pretty cool. That was probably my favorite piece in the show. Although I'm not crazy about how they're doing the hilt work.
The hilt almost looks like one of those interwoven friendship bracelets you make in middle school.
Yeah, it does. But it does look very elvish, I think. Like if I were to see that and not know it was in the show, I would be like, oh, that's an elven blade.
Right.
So I mean it's cool. I do like how they're blending the metals there. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
The other one though, the one in the middle there, was it a Vorpal blade, we think? Or what do they call that? It's the marble blade that what's his name gets stabbed with in Fellowship of the Ring. I think that's the kind of blade it is, right?
The marble blade that Frodo gets stabbed with.
Yeah.
Which King of Ingmar? So
we think it's one of those. That's what people are guessing. But
sure.
For me, I thought it was the one from Lionel's sword from
Sword of Omens.
Yeah, it looks like the Sword of Omens. I don't know why I got that vibe from it, but
Sword of Omens, give me sight beyond sight. Yeah. And Sauron's eye opens up and looks at you, and you're like, oh.
Because Sauron's mark is on there, right? And so I was kind of waiting for that. It was funny. And I don't think we've seen the one on the right yet, right?
No, I don't think we've seen the one on the right.
That's the same guard as the
I'm kind of torn because you know me, I love broken swords. It's like my whole thing.
That's why I thought of you immediately when that came up.
Oh, cool, broken sword. That's rad. Multiple fullers, cat. Okay, the long sword look. It's got these weird, like almost antler-esque, like thorn things, and almost like a swept hilt rapier added into that.
Yeah.
It's a bastard of so many different sword, or amalgamation of so many different swords. And I'm fighting hard to like kind of go, it's way too anime, or that's kind of cool. And it looked like it was sucking the guy's blood and it was reconstituting itself.
Yeah.
So interesting to see where that goes as well.
Yeah, so it does get me peaked as or curious to see where that goes. And I'm so the sword on the right there, the guard looks very similar to the other elven blades, but the hilt is much shorter. But the gauntlet looks like a Witch King gauntlet, right?
Yeah, all the spikes.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's kind of a hey, this is coming type thing.
Sure. And it's again, it looks very video game anime. So far, a lot of the swords look very video game anime-ish. You know, or you know,
instead of historical fantasy,
historical fantasy like we get through the original trilogy.
Yeah. So those are all the images I had. So, but you know, overall, I'm kind of interested to see where that guy who falls in the crater. I'm kind of wondering.
I've read a couple things about like who it could be, who we think it is, and that's the thing with doing like super expensive fanfic. You have an idea, but you don't really know. You know what I mean? Because there's historical lore that they don't really have access to. I still run the gamut of like I think if none of the characters were named what they were named, and even if they didn't call it Lord of the Rings, and it was just a fantasy TV show about something, it probably would have been more warmly received and people would have liked it. But you run the risk of like offending and stepping on so many people's toes. You know what I mean? And then a backlash against that as well, which again, it's people, they're going to do what they're going to do. Right. It's not as bad as people think, and it's not as good as people think. In my mind, it's right there in the middle. Like, it's interesting. I'll watch it, but it's definitely, it doesn't hold a candle compared to Peter Jackson's original trilogy. In my opinion, it doesn't have any of the grit or majesty that Peter Jackson's trilogy had.
Right. Yeah. But I agree. Like, if this wasn't Lord of the Rings, I think it probably would have been great. And it really baffles me because I'm pretty sure they know. Like, Tolkien himself he wrote papers about it. He gave speeches about like, don't change my work.
Right. The stories are mine.
And don't
if they called it like Elven Bane, or something like that, and just didn't name anyone or didn't have the Ring of Power in there, but like, oh, this is kind of cool. Okay.
Because I mean, I am curious to see where it goes, and I'm not a hardcore Tolkien fan to the point where I would be upset by it, but I do understand those that are, because again, he was very adamant about how he wanted his work treated, right? And so I mean, I think a lot of those folks also had some issues with the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, where they took out some characters they thought were important to save time, but it's an adaptation. So I would say the original Lord of the Rings movies were all, I would call those adaptations. Whereas this, you can't say it's an adaptation because it's not. It's a made up story.
It's its own thing, its own story. It's an Elseworlds, to borrow the DC term.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's Middle Earth 616.
Yeah. Awesome.
Another universe.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I think we're gonna call it there. Any other comments or anything? I mean, we'll see. I'm not sure. I don't even know when.
I think we did a good enough job being neutral as possible and not being too negative or too harsh. What I mean?
Yeah. Does it come out every Thursday? Is that right?
Every Friday.
Friday. Okay. So so probably we'll do the next one in what, a couple weeks. We'll probably do let 2 or 3 come out. And then
I did like Khazad Doom. That was amazing. I thought that was really cool.
I love the whole storyline, and that throughout that whole part was great.
Yeah. I thought a lot of the dwarfs looked cool. I thought some of the sentries looked a little plain Jane, and they looked like they got their axes off of Amazon. I don't know if that's because they're just sentries. They don't get like fancy anything.
For Amazon right now.
There you go.
I do that joke, but
I didn't. No, it was just in my brain. But they were like, oh, we spent all the budget on CGI. Crap. What do we do? Let's just jump on our own website and order some axes. That's. Yeah. I've never seen dwarves and dwarven artistry look underwhelming at all, and the sentries with the face masks I thought really were, and their weapons as well. Some of the scenes were really cool though.
Yeah, all the cities looked like all the CG cities of very far out landscape looked really cool. The downside was we didn't get any of the close-ups of that, right? It was only the far.
Right. All the landscapes looked great.
Yeah, except for Khazad-dûm, which was beautiful. I thought it was great. So
Khazad-dûm was pretty rad. The Harfoot village I thought was kind of cool. Like I get people are hating on the Harfoots. I thought the Harfoot design looked pretty decent, and I thought their whole hiding in the woods aesthetic looked okay.
Well, are they hiding? Because they said they're hiding, but clearly that's a house. Right? So,
true. Yeah.
I was like, if somebody walked by, they would be like, "Wait a minute, that's a house." You know.
They ordered a bunch of ghillie suits off of Amazon and just threw it over everything.
Yeah, funny.
I thought that scene was cool with like the giant antlers on their back. I thought again, a lot of the aesthetics
Actually,
were cool. They look like moose antlers, like they'd been hunting giant moose.
Were those Harfoots doing that, or was that a different? I thought
those were humans. Those were man.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And that's where they were hiding. They were hiding from them because they didn't want hunters and giant people to come and cause havoc.
I didn't think they were doing a good job of hiding with a bright lanterns and stuff walking around.
Yeah, they made it seem like humans never come out that way, and when they do, it's just a couple of them to hunt things and then they hide. But the way they're living, it's like, what if someone was walking by in the distance in the background? There's just a shit ton of lights and music going on over there. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny that they've tried to stay out of the eye of regular giant people, and lo and behold, one in the form of an asteroid comes and lands on them. Like, yeah. Sorry, man.
I did like
that guy screams and controls the weather.
Yeah, the effects they did for him were quite cool, I thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see where it goes, and everyone watching, thanks for staying along with us here in our review, and please comment below with your thoughts and stuff, and we'll pick up on the.
Whoa! No comments. Don't.
That's right. Yeah, comments aren't allowed for that.
Yeah, no comment. Amazon just picked us up.
You can't comment on this one.
Yeah, Amazon just picked us up. They don't want us to talk about it anymore. We're gonna cancel them all.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have like dead presidents motif. SWAT team members jump in wearing rubber Jeff Bezos masks and beat the shit out of me. But if you're gonna comment about this, keep it civil. I don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do we want like 1,000 dumpster fire comments of people hating each other? I don't want that.
We don't have that many followers, man.
But that's true. Yeah. All seven of you that's listening to this. Brian Kuntz, I know you're watching. Matthew James Pope, probably chat. What the hell is happening,
Brian, right now?
Dude, that's Bezos. He's come to get me. Well, it's been real, guys. I'm Joshua Warbear. You can find me at Warbear_Armory or Facebook Joshua Von Warbear.
Yeah, and then you can find me Sterling Armory on Facebook or Instagram, and go jump over to our full YouTube channel to catch all of our other shows. And we will see you guys next time.
Later.
Peace out.